Imminent. Inside the Pentagon's hunt for UFOs. That's the title of Lue Elizondo's new book. It's available for pre-sale now. Will come out in August. Now, who is Lue Elizondo? I'm sure you know if you've clicked on this, but just in case. He is the former head of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, otherwise known as ATIP. It was the Pentagon's office to study UFOs. And Lue Elizondo was famous for coming out in the 2017 New York Times article that started the entire public conversation that you hear right now, right? Those three, videos that came out, all black and white, that you've seen everywhere. And his book was announced years ago, okay? And it's finally coming out. We finally have a title. We've got a cover for the book. You can actually pre-sale order. There's been a lot of false positives over the last few months of, news of his book coming out and whatever. So today's video, we're going to give some details about the book, but we're also just going to talk about what could be potentially in this book, right? What is he going to be talking about? So we're going to look at some older clips of Lue Elizondo just chatting about the UFO topic, right? Maybe we can get an idea of what's going to be in this book. So without further ado, let's dive in. If you're new to the channel, you like content like this, please hit that subscribe button, y'all. I put out a new video every day, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. I do not miss a day. And please hit that like button, vetters. That really helps out the videos. So thank y'all so much for the support there. And of course, comment down below. What do you think about Lue Elizondo's book? Are you going to read it? Are you going to get it? I am. Let's go. All right. So first thing, see the book. Here it is. Inside the Pentagon's Hunt for UFOs. Imminent. Right? Lue Elizondo. August 20th, 2024. Right? And let's just read this little thing here, this little blurb. It says, the former head of the Pentagon program responsible for the investigation of UFOs, now known as Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena, UAP, reveals long-hidden truths with profound implications for not only national security, but our understanding of the universe. Lue Elizondo is a former senior intelligence official and special agent who was recruited into a strange and highly sensitive U.S. government program to investigate UAP incursions into sensitive military installations and airspace. To accomplish his mission, Elizondo had to rely on decades of experience gained working some of America's most sensitive and classified programs. Even then, he was not prepared for what he would learn, and the truth about the government's long shadowy involvement in UAP investigations and the lengths officials would take to keep them a secret. The stakes could not be higher. Imminent is a first-hand revelatory account inside the Pentagon's most closely guarded secret and a call to action to confront humanity's greatest existential questions. Okay. Whoever wrote that, good job. It's coming from William Morrow. And this is true now. Okay, this is real. Lue Elizondo tweeted it out. I always said we'll know it's real when Lue Elizondo tweets it out, because trust me, he's going to promote his book, and that's exactly what happened. So again, here it is. You can go pre-order it now. I'll put a link in the description. Go for it. It's available on a lot of different sites. I know you can get it hardcover, audiobook, right? There's, but what's going to be in it? What's he going to talk about? People have been speculating about that for years, to be honest with you. So again, we're just going to go through some old clips of Lue Elizondo, old interview clips of him, and see if we can get an idea of maybe what's going to be in there. Especially the last clip I'm going to play for you. That is the most tantalizing. Let's go.
And that's, of course, what Fravor saw when he was up close, because he was much closer than these cameras are, right?
That's
and
what all of our pilots are
sheer
reporting.
Surface.
Yeah.
So look, I think we all want to know, do you think any government has recovered a crashed UAP?
So what I've said for the record, which is unfortunately all I can say, is that it is my belief that the United States is in possession of exotic material, and unfortunately, that's about all I can say at this time.
How worried are you about a foreign adversary getting hold of this, or maybe understanding this technology before the...
First, before he answers the rest of that, I'm sorry, what? Right? It is my belief that the government is in possession of exotic material. right? These are the different ways that we got some UFO shit is said, right? Because that's what they're saying. We got some UFO shit, y'all. Right? We got aliens and UFOs, but they want to clean it up so it's unidentified anomalous phenomena and non-human intelligence. What they mean is UFOs and effing aliens, and that's okay, right? Exotic material, out of this world, otherworldly craft. We're talking about UFOs and aliens. And when I say aliens, I don't necessarily mean from another planet. They could be ultra terrestrial, right? Living here the whole time. They could be whatever. But when they're saying non-human intelligence, they are referring to aliens. And UAP is UFOs. And this is crazy, right? What details of what he just said, right? I believe the government, U.S. government is in possession of exotic materials. What part of that statement is he going to bring up in the book, right? And give some more details about why he believes that. And again, the last clip I'm going to play for you might be an indication of why he thinks that. So, just find that very interesting. Let's hear just a little bit more from that answer.
West.
I think that's my greatest fear. We're a species that tends to be violent towards one another. And my job with national security was to try to anticipate what the enemy is going to do. If there is an adversary that has this type of technology and the ability to operate without impunity in our controlled U.S. airspace, I think that's problematic. We spend millions of dollars ensuring we have what we call air domain awareness and control of our airspace. And clearly, we don't have as much control as we think we do.
So,
I agree with that, right? Besides, that little graphic that came up of the gimbal video right here, I didn't do that, right? That clearly you can see they're superimposing that in post-production, and it just got thrown on a little early. But look, again, I'm going to put links to all of this so you can go check out the full. This is a full 28-minute interview he did with British GQ, November 25th, 2021. All right, so go check it out and, see that. All right, this is from the Washington Post. This is 2 years ago as well. And, again, just interesting answers about certain things.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I think there's two congruencies that we see. We see an interest in our nuclear capabilities, and then we have this really bizarre what I don't know if you'd call it an interest, but there seems to be a connection with water. And these things have a tendency to be seen in and around water, which kind of leads to one of the observables that we've had. There's 5 distinct observables that set this technology, as I mentioned earlier, aside from everything we have in our inventory. The first is hypersonic velocity, the ability to change directions instantly. And when I say instantly, I mean human beings can withstand about 9 G forces. Some of our best aircraft can withstand about 16 Gs. These things are doing 300, 400, 600 Gs in mid-flight. Then there's hypersonic velocity. That is speeds that by definition are Mach 5 or above. Very, very fast. We do have some technology. You mentioned Russian hypersonics and things like that. There are technologies that can go that fast, but then again, you don't expect a hypersonic aircraft to do a 90-degree turn. To put that into context, our SR-71 Blackbird, when at 3,200 miles an hour, wants to take a right-hand turn. It takes roughly half the state of Ohio to do it. You don't expect it to just kind of do this. And that's precisely what we're seeing. And then the third observable is a bit like cloaking. We call it low observability. But the fourth observable is what we were talking about, and that's transmedium travel and water. The ability for an object to fly not only in our atmosphere, low and high altitudes, but also potentially in a vacuum environment like space and even underwater. Now, we do have vehicles that can do that. We have, for example, a seaplane. A seaplane is a plane that can fly and it can float on the water. But when you look at it, it's neither really a very good aircraft or a boat because it's a design compromise. And yet what we are seeing are objects that can operate in all these domains or all these environments, seemingly without any type of performance compromise. And so why are we seeing these things around in and around water is something that we're really kind of scratching our heads with, because we've seen these things. They've been recorded not only in our atmosphere, but there is data to suggest that they have also been tracked by some of our capabilities underwater as well, and being able to perform in ways that frankly exceed anything that we know on the planet right now.
And Lou, unfortunately, we only have time for one more question, but I
worries.
should make it clear to our viewers that you actually signed an NDA when you were working on this at the Pentagon. Is there any scenario that would cause you to break that NDA if you feel like, for example, this report obfuscates or peddles disinformation about what the findings actually are here?
No, ma'am. I will never violate my non-disclosure agreement with the government. I still maintain a security clearance, and the reason is that not because it's my loyalty to the government, because it's my loyalty to the American people. That contract I signed those many years ago was a promise to the American people that I would never violate their trust, period. And I can't violate their trust in order to gain their trust. It doesn't work that way. So what I'm going to continue to do is doing what I'm doing now, and pushing for this disclosure, pushing for the information that I know to be true because I saw it and so did my colleagues. Continue to have this conversation the way I can. And I'll tell you, if it looks like the Pentagon continues to obfuscate, I have made it clear before that there's a possibility I would consider running for some sort of congressional office. I don't want to do that. I'm not a politician. I don't have the political savvy. But if I have to put my boots back on in order to make sure this conversation is had and ultimately allow the American people to have this conversation amongst themselves, then I will do what's necessary short of violating my non-disclosure agreement and violating my trust with the American people.
Interesting, right? Answers there. A couple things. One, I get the NDA thing, but Lue has recently just called himself a whistleblower. I don't see how you can be a whistleblower and still maintain your NDA. Like, you can talk about everything else, but not what you signed an NDA about. You know what I mean? Like, I guess that doesn't compute for me. Right? It's like saying, I'm not going to tell you the secret I have. I have this big secret. It's huge. It's massive. It's a great big secret. You know, this is how I got it. It's a big, I'm not going to tell you the secret. But I'm going to tell you there is a big secret, so you can keep asking me about it. Right? It's like the first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club, right? So just bringing up that you signed this NDA, that you have all this information you know that you can't talk about and this and that, it's kind of like pointless. Like, what's the point of that? Right? And maintaining an NDA is a greater responsibility than what humanity is owed, truth and knowledge of reality. Doesn't that trump anybody's NDA? A piece of paper? Right? 21st century invention, really, the non-disclosure agreement, right? When did this come about? Or 20th century, I guess. Right. I guess my point being, how is that more important? Just some piece of paper, some agreement. I get Lou's point about trust and loyalty. Like, I get that. And maybe I'm not understanding this correctly, and a conversation with Lue could help clear that up. Sure. I would ask him, how does that compute, right? How do we balance all of that? Because I get his point about wanting to maintain. He signed something. He wants to stick to it. I get that. I respect the hell out of that. But at the same time, there's this other conversation being had at all times, right? Which is the world-changing reality, the greatest discovery in mankind, this and that. But I signed this piece of paper. Who cares? Your oath to the American people, how about the oath to humanity? I don't know. It's like, I guess he's trying to maintain both. I don't know. So maybe this book is a way around some of that in a smart way. Okay. And look, let's be real. He's being asked in a Washington Post interview. He's going to have to say that, right? He can't just be like, yeah, I'm getting ready to violate that on Tuesday, 3 p.m. Like, you know what I mean? He's getting put in jail. So that's probably not even a real answer. It's just the answer he needs to say publicly, which I totally get, right? Because at that point in time, he's definitely being watched. Right, we all know what has happened since then. Lue Elizondo's emails have been erased. He just recently put out, that he's been threatened and all this stuff, right? Like, so I part of me gets it, but I wonder if that's also the truth. And I wonder if this part of this book is a way around that, right? And listen to everything he said about the observables and underwater. Is there going to be more information about that? I mean, we have seen more about that come out with Tim Gallaudet, right? Very interesting. So, all right. Next clip.
And about 70,000 years ago, something fundamentally changed. Something changed, and our species was instantly catapulted to the very top of our planet as far as predatory animals. And now all of a sudden, we became the most feared. We were the most lethal and the most successful. And in fact, most of the large species that existed on this planet went extinct because of us. Believe it or not, because we started eating all of it. There were a couple species that did very, very well with our ascension, our immediate ascension. And we brought a couple species with us. The dog is an example, where the dog species benefited greatly with mankind's ascension as the alpha predator and wound up succeeding as well, doing very well off of that. That changed the entire global landscape of our planet almost overnight. Large animals went extinct because of us. What if it turns out that there's another species that is even higher on that ladder than we are? Do we need the social institutions that we have today? Will we need governmental and religious organizations that we have today if it turns out that there is something else or someone else that is technologically more advanced and perhaps from an evolutionary perspective more advanced? Have we been wasting our time all this time, or are we doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing? Are we? Does it turn out that mankind is in fact just another animal in the zoo? Or because we thought ourselves as a zookeeper before, but maybe we're just another exhibit inside the zoo. What would that mean to us? So when I say sombering and sobering, I mean that there's going to come a point in this conversation where we're going to have to do a lot of reconciling with ourselves, whatever that means, from whatever philosophical background you have. This is going to impact every single one of us the same and yet equally and yet differently. And I think that's important. Do we find ourselves in a situation where history may have to be rewritten? So that's what I meant. Now, as far as the charlatans, I'm not going to give any attention to individual charlatans because
they already have enough attention. Okay, charlatans. Oh, that's interesting. What I find interesting about that is it looked like Lue Elizondo was reading on that clip, right? Look at the other clips, the way he spoke. He doesn't talk that way. It just looked like he was reading. Not that that means anything. I'm sure he just had prepared notes for an interview. Now, I remember making a video about that early and vetted, and Kurt Jai-Mongol came to my channel, right, when I had like 300 subscribers and I made that video. And he was like, I don't think Lou's not reading. You would hear the pages moving, right? And Kurt was kind enough to come and respond, and I don't remember what I said, to be honest with you. Thank you. But as someone else pointed out in the comments, he could have a tablet, right? Like, it doesn't necessarily mean he had actual papers, but it just looks like he's reading from there. And you would think, well, how could he be reading, right? How would he know what the questions are? Well, I suggested potentially that Lue got the questions ahead of time before this interview, which there's nothing wrong with it. That does happen sometimes. You just want more prepared answers. That doesn't mean anyone's lying or being deceitful, right? And Kurt said, I don't think I've ever given him the questions before. So he didn't say, for certain he had never, but he didn't think he had ever done that. So I don't know. Again, does that matter? No, I don't know. It's just interesting. God, I mean, I don't know. I don't see anything malicious by it, but it is interesting to read that. Which, that's a lot to have, right, going on. Prepare your notes, right? So, all right, another clip here. And look, what he said is kind of true, right, about the dog and the hierarchy and, you know. And it's terrifying. Let's be real. All of that is absolutely terrifying.
Out front now, the former Pentagon military official who ran the covert government program up until this last November, Lue Elizondo. Luis, thank you so much for your time tonight. I mean, first, tell us what the purpose of the program was and why it was so secretive.
Sure. The purpose of the program, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, was really designed to do just that. From a national security perspective, identify those things that we see, whether we see them electro-optically, we see them with radar, we see them as eyewitness reports, through a myriad of different ways and avenues that we receive the information, and try to ascertain and determine if that information is a potential threat to national security, in a nutshell.
So what did you find?
Well, we found a lot. I think it's probably been a little bit mischaracterized in some of the social media you see and what people put out, because a lot of times when we don't have a lot of information, we tend to fill in those gaps with what we think is logical. And there's still, by the way, a lot we really don't know. I think what's important is that we have identified some very, very interesting, anomalous type of aircraft. Let's call them aircraft. Things that don't have any obvious flight surfaces, any obvious forms of propulsion, and maneuvering in ways that include extreme maneuverability beyond, I would submit, the healthy G-forces of a human or anything biological, hypersonic velocities, low observability, positive lift, again, seemingly in defying the laws of aerodynamics. So people are talking.
Think, I mean, I know, but do you believe, when you get that Navy pilot saying what he said, do you think that that was, a UFO? To obviously, I don't have any other word to use, or that, or something else?
Sure, that's a great question. Keeping in mind, it's not just the pilot's testimony on an observation. Sure, when someone comes to you who's in charge of a multi-million-dollar weapon platform, who maintains a top secret security clearance, who is paid and trusted by this country to go fight wars and to fly over cities with live munitions, and by the way, they're trained observers with millions of dollars invested in their training.
Yep.
I would submit to you it's pretty compelling. But on top of that, it's not just the eyewitness testimony. It is actual electro-optical data and radar returns. It's also people like radar operators and air traffic controllers. So I think the discussion should be maybe a little bit broader than that. I think people are focusing just on 2 videos coming from a set of F-18s when really it's a lot more than that.
So recently, I guess it was in October, astronomers spotted what they say could be the first interstellar asteroid. You see it there, kind of that strange shape from beyond the solar system. What do you see when you look at that?
Well, Ms. Burnett, I have to admit to you, when I ran this program, I was fundamentally looking at, my colleagues looking at 2 things.
Yeah.
What is it and how does it work? We have deliberately stayed away from going down the rabbit hole of who's behind the wheel and what are their intentions.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people have a lot of feelings towards that and are very emotional about that. And what I wanted to do is to allow the data to speak for itself and then use that data to inform leadership, senior DoD leadership, about the potential threat that these type of technologies pose to national security, especially over any type of controlled airspace that we might have. So I'm not trying to be evasive in any way or vague with your answer, but
yeah. Well,
I think there's a lot of possibilities.
Look, and I know you think it's important. I know you think that the government didn't take the threat seriously enough. So let me just ask you point blank the question. Do you believe that life from somewhere else, while you ran this program, came here, visited, observed?
I will tell you unequivocally that through the observation, scientific methodologies that were applied to look at this phenomena,
that these aircraft, we'll call them aircraft, are displaying characteristics that are not currently within the U.S. inventory nor in any foreign inventory that we are aware of.
So I know you're being clear, but I mean, the answer is yes.
I can't speak on behalf of the government. Obviously, I'm not in the U.S. government anymore. My personal belief is that there is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone, whatever that means.
Whatever that means. I'll tell you what that means. Holy. Okay, so that was from 6 years ago on CNN, right? So very soon after the 2017 New York Times article. And look, let's be real. Lue has been quiet in podcasts for a minute now, right? He really hasn't done any interviews for a while because of this big push that's about to come. He is going to do interviews for his book for the first time in a long time. And my guess is a month out, maybe. It could be just right around the time the book is out, like on the 20th or the 19th. He will do some, bigger interviews about it, podcasting and stuff. I don't know, right? That could be a month out. I doubt he'll do anything before then, right? He may do one or two, kind of just whatever, sprinkle in there, and then really hit the ground running when the book is out or just about to come out. That's usually when that stuff happens, PR pushes and, there's a lot of money behind this book and it's need to be successful, right? So they will definitely do everything they can to get this book out to as many people as possible and get as many sales as possible. And I get it. He worked hard on this book. He spent a lot of time on this book. It's taken a long time. And I get it. And a lot of people are going to be interested in it. The anticipation that is built for this book is insane. Right? It's insane. So, and then the conversation that will come from the book, at least a couple years worth of just dialogue, What's interesting is that's going to come out around the same time James Fox's documentary, The Program. I almost wish they weren't coming out so soon together, but whatever. All right, let's look at another clip here. This is on the Need to Know podcast.
Lou, I know you can't talk about any evidence that's been given in closed hearings, but have you given evidence in closed hearings before the Congress? Are you able to tell us that? And more importantly, is there any prospect at all that you would be deposed under oath in an open public hearing?
I'll second that question. Yeah.
The first question is, I've always maintained, whatever relationship I have in Washington, it's really up for that party to divulge. Just like I've been speaking to Mr. McGuire. I never acknowledged it until he came out and acknowledged it. That's not my place to say. If people want to know what my dealings are with the U.S. government and Congress, they can ask the U.S. government and Congress. And I'm going to just restrain myself from having that conversation. Now, as far as going up to Congress, if there are more hearings, which I suspect there will be, you better believe it. I will absolutely go and testify along with several of my colleagues.
And Lou, I keep thinking, because we've seen that you've had, people personally attacking you in on Twitter and things like that, and there's been the documentary, so-called documentary that came out from Mr. Greenstreet over the weekend, and I look at those and I think, I bet Lou would love to be testifying under oath, because wouldn't that allow you and force you to sort of prove your case once and for all?
Well, but look, if you're into tabloids, then read tabloids. Twitter's full of it. Everybody knows it. There's a bunch of haters. They're called trolls for a reason. I don't really care. My focus is on the 99% of fair-minded, rational people out there that aren't, conspiracy-minded individuals. I'm not doing this for me. Everything I've ever said has always come to fruition and is always checked out without exception.
like I said, I had this document in my hand for a reason. I guess they're calling the good senator a liar too. And, I've got lots and lots of documentation and email that will do more than satisfy who I am and what I've done.
So he's willing to testify, right? Now, a couple things about that. I have seen Lue in a documentary this time last year, actually, that came out. Ron James, I think is his name, the documentary. And Lue says in there, like, he's not a whistleblower. He's not for disclosure. It's interesting. They're interesting comments. Like, he's not for disclosure. He's not for bringing. So I don't know what's, a lot of confusing messages sometimes. And look, I'm sure this book and this next press run that he'll do will clear up a lot of things. And look, to be fair to him as well, when you speak as much as someone like him has publicly, right, in different interviews, so things you say are gonna, sometimes, and people change their minds, have different viewpoints, and whatever. Literally, you can change your mind from one moment to the next. So, what does that mean? I don't think that makes you a liar. I just think that means you change your mind. But the fact, this is from July 22nd, 2023. But I think that, would he testify under oath still?
Lou, I know you.
I don't know. I don't know if he still would. Guess we'll find out. All right, let's get to the last clip here. This is from Dr. Stephen Greer. I've played this before on the show, but I find this next couple minutes pretty interesting from Dr. Stephen Greer. This is the video I was saying at the beginning, and it's quite tantalizing, quite interesting, to say the least.
People are very confused on what's going on since, of course, everyone on this call probably knows Lue Elizondo is a professional disinformation agent putting out false intelligence about the UFO matter in through the mainstream media. The reason Mr. Sheehan is doing this, we've had a long discussion about it going back 2 or 3 weeks, is that Lue Elizondo approached him to help him with his legal case because the Pentagon was about to pull his security clearances. And it wasn't because he was doing things with TTSA, that they wanted him to do that. It was because he had resigned from TTSA, fallen out with the people that were the hardliners wanting him to present that there was an alien threat or a threat to the national security. And he has told 2 people on my team, including attorney Daniel Sheehan, that he knows, and the other people like Chris Mellon know, that there is no such thing as an alien threat, that there is not a threat to the national security, but that's the only way they can get this in front of the American people to get more overt funding for the Space Force and eventually a conflict with these extraterrestrial civilizations. He has flat out said he knows that everything he's been saying about this being a threat is untrue. Now, Daniel Sheehan has also shared, and this is even more explosive, that Lue Elizondo has informed him that he, in fact, has been in a facility where an actual extraterrestrial vehicle was stored. Now, why is that important? Because he's all over the news, 60 Minutes, every mainstream news channel, along with his other cohorts in the cover-up, such as Leslie Keene, Nick Pope, Chris Mellon, and others, saying that we don't know what these are. Now, interestingly, he absolutely knows that some of these craft are, in fact, of extraterrestrial origin. He must also then know that some of them are ours. For example, the recent Jeremy Corbell interview on Fox News, where they were showing these triangles swarming, menacing our Navy ships. Every one of those pyramid triangular-shaped objects with the flashing light on them are from either Northrop Grumman or Boeing or the Lockheed, most likely Northrop Grumman. Those are man-made UFOs. They're anti-gravity vehicles. Everyone in the aerospace industry at any level of clearance knows this. So this is a big problem. So I told Mr. Sheehan, I said, look, you have to be very careful. If you're going to work with this gentleman, you have to understand that he is a master of disinformation. I am quoting from a senior CIA official who wrote me about this when they first emerged after Unacknowledged came out in 2017. And of course, Daniel Sheehan knows this. He told me point blank, yes, we know this. The main reason he's working with him is to represent him and to get him to come clean. So it's a very interesting strategy. What Daniel Sheehan is trying to do is to get Lue Elizondo and then perhaps after him some of the others to actually admit that they know that there is not a threat from the UFOs and that they have been coerced into doing so. Recently on the internet, on a YouTube interview that's now been taken down, Daniel Sheehan admitted that there was an inspector general of the Pentagon had been pulled in to look into complaints from Lue Elizondo at the insistence of Daniel Sheehan about him being threatened with loss of his security clearance not because he was disclosing classified material, but because he went off the leash and was not wanting to continue to say the falsehood that these were an alien threat. And I think in large part because Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, which exposes that as an absolute bull-faced lie, has now been seen by millions and millions of people, and it's one of the top trending documentaries on Amazon Prime and elsewhere. So what is happening here, just so people get clear, is it is not that Daniel Sheehan has defected to the dark side or anything like that. He's trying to encourage Lue Elizondo, and I think by extension some of these others, to in fact defect from the disinformation and lies that they have been saying in the mainstream media, up on Capitol Hill, and in other places about this subject. The two very big lies that they're telling.
So that's interesting. Wow. Again, it's impossible for us to know their intention if there's a phenomena, and if that phenomena is one deciding phenomena, or it's multiple factions deciding for themselves with it. You know, I mean, like, what are we talking about? And even then, again, what are the intention? Like, to say it could be a threat or they are threatening, or that, of course, right? You can't really say anything other than that. They're friendly till they're not. You know, they're a threat till they're not. I mean, we just don't know. Either way, it could go either way with everything at all times. Like, suppose we have these agreements. I mean, unless there's just details we don't know about, right? But there's a reason we have laws, right? It's the same thing. We have laws in place because no matter what human beings know what to do, that doesn't mean we'll do it. And no one's perfect, right? You've heard that saying, no one's perfect. We all make mistakes, literally. Because mistakes are impossible to avoid. The universe makes mistakes. Nature makes mistakes. It's just mistakes happen, right? Divergent paths, maybe, if you want to look at it that way. So this idea that we, aliens aren't, Dr. Stephen Greer's aliens aren't a threat. How do you know? How do you know that? You cannot guarantee that at any point. So this idea that, better safe than sorry. We only got one planet. Maybe we should be, for now anyway, right? Let's better safe than sorry. Let's just be careful, right? Let's walk up guarded to this thing. Let's figure this out, right? Let's be careful. Let's, instead of, it's all fine. It's all good. Just make contact. Let them into your brain. What? Yeah, just call them down from the sky. Again, there's just no way for us to know. And even if every experience you've had before that doesn't mean that that's what every experience after that. Right? Does that make sense? That's like saying, oh, well, I'll never get in an accident. in my car, right, driving, because I haven't been in one up until now. So that means I will never get in one moving forward. It's impossible to determine that. All right, but that's how people feel, right? Now, you can feel better about the odds, but to guarantee it, it's impossible. That's why it's a personal choice for people to make that sort of contact. And I get it. Stephen Greer pushes, CE5 contact, and I'm not diminishing that. I think people, if they want to do that, they should absolutely do that. I don't care. Right? Do what you want. But that's probably why he's pushing that. Well, they're not a threat. What does that even mean? Any species can be a threat when they need to be. That doesn't mean you're a threat all the time, right? It just means, are they, again, this idea that people just know for certain these things is crazy, right? Without any proof or evidence, it's beyond me. But regardless of that, Lue Elizondo has, been in a facility where a craft is stored. Is that going to be in the book, right? His firsthand knowledge. Is Luis Elizondo a firsthand witness to a UFO, a being? I think there's going to be a story about how he's a remote viewer, and he used remote viewing to help him and his squad get out of a situation in a military zone or something. And that's interesting. I've heard that story a lot. I've heard other stories of him remote viewing other people, telling their future, reading into their future, and telling them what's going to happen to them, right, just by touching them. And he just doesn't, Luis Elizondo just doesn't talk about that. But then other people will talk about what the interaction they had with Luis Elizondo about it, right? But Luis Elizondo has not confirmed any of that. So, did he just saving it for the book? Okay. I think there's going to be some sort of admission of abilities in this book. I think there will be some admission of potentially being a witness to some sort of UFO or being near one or something, it's possible. I think there's going to be a lot of speculation and theory and hypothesis for sure. There'll probably be some facts and events that happened in the past that surrounding ATIP, especially where he was involved with, that people are just going to pick apart without a doubt. Is it going to be a fascinating book? Yes. Is Luis Elizondo's story fascinating? Yes. Am I going to read it? Yes. Should you? That's up to you. I think you should. If you're into this topic, it's well worth reading. 100%. And I am curious what's going to be in it. What are we going to learn from it? Or even just learn about Luis Elizondo. If he's someone you look into, right? Like look up to or whatever. So, yeah, I'm curious to read the comments, what people think, how far Luis Elizondo will go with what he knows. Is he saving information for another book that's going to come out, right? I don't know. But it will be good to have him back doing interviews where people can ask him some questions, right? Because it's been a minute. So that'll be nice. And will we get him on Vetted? I hope so. But if we don't, we don't. We'll cover the interviews. It is what it is at the end of the day. Plenty of people will ask him great questions. So, but anyway, all right, guys. That's it for this video. Quick channel update, real quick. Is, again, links in the description for all the Luis Elizondo stuff. So go check that out, as always. All right, quick channel update is tonight. Okay, this is for tonight only. So Thursday, May 23rd, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'm having a live stream with Jon Stewart. No, not that Jon Stewart, not the comedian. Jon Stewart, who is investigating the alien interview from the 90s. Anyway, I'll put a couple links in the description if you want to check out a previous interview I did with him about that and some other stuff. And there's some drama around, around John and I and whatever. We'll kind of get into that tonight in the live stream. John Stewart is joining me, right? So me and John Stewart tonight on a live stream, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're going to talk a bit, him and I, and then we're going to answer some fan questions for sure. So join in the live stream, put in your questions. We'll set them to the side and get to them in the second half of the live stream. But that should be interesting. So look, if you want some context for tonight, I'm going to put a couple links in the description. You can watch those videos. I'm going to show some stuff tonight, too, that I haven't shown or talked about, which should be interesting about this alien interview from the 90s. I don't know. It's very interesting. Look, it's going to be a great live stream. It's going to be interesting for sure. There's probably going to be some fireworks, but hopefully we can just have a civil and respectful conversation as adults. So, and disagree, agree, whatever. Just lay it out all on the table tonight and see what happens. So anyway, all right, guys. I'll see you in Discord. Link in the description. Remember, every day's a gift, y'all.